put it in speaker view, so you're just mostly recording yourself, but now you're recording me.
Perfect. All right. So happy New Year, first of all. Let me just start by saying that and saying how glad I am that you guys have decided to spend some time with me. We are going to be talking about goal setting, obviously, and my hope is for today that it encourages you and then it also gives you practical application. So none of this just thinking about goals situation, but I really hope, it is my desire that as we leave, as you exit this call, you will have some practical ways to apply what we're talking about today. So that's the hope, the desire for how we're going to get after it today. So first off, if you don't mind, go ahead and push mute on your sound. And Flags, I don't know why, but it really likes you to be in the center of the screen. You're the center of attention. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see our little thing here. All right. So this is our goal setting workshop. I've already said that. And I want to start out with a little bit of a description, an analogy, if you will, for how I want us to think about our goals. So on the screen, you'll see the picture of a swamp and a stream. And I think I'm going to propose that this is two ways of living. All right. Both are full of life, both are fruitful, both are important to their environments, but one of them is full of energy and momentum and has the power to affect change beyond and outside of itself. And I'm going to suppose that most of us don't want to live a life just as a swamp, existing in the way that we have, things we've been given in our life and what we do with it. It's fine to be a swamp. Swamps are important because life does live there. But this vision of a stream, to be the kind of person to live the kind of life that has power, has influence, has strength, can affect change in ourselves and in the world around us, is really the reason that we talk about setting goals. And some of you have heard this before, but your life is perfectly designed to produce the fruit that you're experiencing right now. The way you live your life, what you do, your habits, your thoughts are exactly what is needed to produce the fruit that you have in your life. And so the only way to change that is to change the way we live. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go throughout our time. So we're going to talk about the process of setting goals. And I've broken it down. And just so you know, like, this is Becky taking from books, experience, coaching. I don't have one source that these ideas have come from. It's just from decades of coaching people and helping people improve and get to their goals. So this is the Becky breakdown of goals. So how do we set our goals? Always begins, fruitful beginning is in self-reflection. Now, I sent you guys some questions. Some of you had time perhaps to look at those questions. Others of you jumped on at the last minute and didn't have time to reflect on those questions. But those 5 questions that I gave you is a really good place to start. I know that, as often happens, New Year's comes around and people go, oh, I need to have a goal. And so you ask somebody what their goal is and you go, that's going to be my goal. There's no self-reflection. There's just a desire to have a goal, which, if you're like most every human, you don't actually live out that goal. That goal doesn't come to fruition in your life because it's not rooted, it's not grounded in a process of self-reflection. So the reason that we do self-reflection is because fundamentally we are all on a journey and none of us are in the same place. And if you are someone who follows Jesus, you know that you're in a process of changing and growing in Christ's likeness. And that's a process that goes on forever and ever and ever until the end of our lives. And so self-reflection gives us the opportunity to be in tune with ourselves and our desires, but also to hear from God, hear what is needed, what's stirring in us, and the ways that we ought to change. So self-reflection is the most important first step in the process of goal setting. So if you haven't had a chance to do that self-reflection yet, when you leave this call, that's where you should start, right? Start at number 1. It's a good place. All right. The second thing is to identify our core desire. And identifying the core desire is really important because sometimes we can mistake a goal for a strategy. We make the strategy the goal. But if we dig in and dig like through the things that come up in our self-reflection, we can uncover that core desire or motivation, the thing we want to do, the person we want to be. And that's really the most important thing, right? We have to know where we're going. The goal has to be beyond just our actions. It has to be where we're going to arrive. And then step number 3, and don't worry, we're going to go through these a little bit more in detail and workshop them because this is a workshop. So number 3 is to reverse engineer the process to achieve that goal. So once you've reflected and you see, okay, I have this desire to grow and become this person. So my goal is to become this person. Then you do process of reverse engineering to say, what are the steps? What are the rhythms? What are the habits? What are the processes I can put in place in my life in order to achieve that core desire, that goal that we're going after? And then 4th step, you got to try it. You got to do it. This is where a lot of us have a lot of great ideas about how we're going to achieve our goals, but then we just don't actually do it. So trying it out and then reevaluating and seeing, is this actually bringing about the goal? Is the process that I'm in, are the steps I'm taking, the rhythms that I put in my life, are they producing the character that I desired as my goal? And then the last step in the process is to adjust that goal. If it's not working or it's not working fast enough or it's too much to take on, you make an adjustment. And then you go back up to the self-reflection. And it's just this cycle of our setting goals over and over again. It's pretty simple structure, simple pattern, but it's not necessarily simple to do. There's a lot of hiccups, a lot of barriers along the way. All right, so I'm going to pause here for just a second and just ask, what are you guys hearing? What's sticking out to you? What questions you have at this moment?
When you say adjust it, are you talking about adjusting the goal or adjusting the strategy? Or both?
Adjusting the strategy. Yeah. So because if you do the work of self-reflection and you hone it down to that core desire, the desire isn't going to change, but maybe the strategy, the approach is what needs to change. And we'll get to that a little bit more with some practical application. But yeah, great clarification question, Kristen.
Becky, are you going to give advice on any ways to go about the self-reflection to kind of dial in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That might help me.
Any other thoughts or questions? Don't be shy. All right, we'll jump back in. So, self-reflection. I got to share my screen first here. Okay. So, in our goals, okay, so the first step, self-reflection. Oftentimes, we don't make space for creating just the thought life that it requires to set good goals. So this is one of the big hiccups in goal setting, right? People hear an idea of someone else's goal, or they think oh, that sounds like a good idea, but it's not connected to who they are, where they are in their stage of life, where they are in their vocation, or they're raising kids, or it's not rooted in who they are. So when it becomes hard with a new habit, every time it becomes hard, they'll disregard it and throw it to the side. So that's why the self-reflection piece is so important. And I think a nuance that I've found really helpful in coaching and helping people come up with goals is that it's a subtle shift from what we want to do to who we want to be. All right. So sometimes when we think of goals, we think, I'm going to run a marathon. That's my goal, which is a fine goal. It's actually a very challenging goal. But if you can hone that in, it may be the better goal is to think about, I want to be a runner. I want to be a runner. Runners run marathons. So my process to become a runner is to do the steps of training for a marathon. But we need the space of self-reflection to really understand who it is that we want to become. What do we want our life to look like? Another way of asking this, there's 100 ways of asking it, but another way is, what sharp edges of your life are being smoothed? Or how do you want to grow? So sometimes we think of it from the positive side. Like, I look at somebody else. This was one of your questions I emailed out to you. I admire this quality in somebody else. So there's a desire in me to want to be like that. And then on the flip side, another way of approaching this is to say, this is this thing I don't like about myself, or the rough edge that I feel like I keep confronting, that I'm realizing through the process of self-reflection. And I have a list of 20 questions that I'm going to send to you after this call that you can look through. The 5 that I already sent you, you can start there. And I always tell people, because everybody has a different temperament and different personality, you may connect with one question more than another. That's fine. Find a question that works for you and dig in, journal, process it with someone who knows you well, however the best style of your processing, but reflect on who you are, who you want to become, what you want your life to look like, and how maybe you want to grow. So connected to that self-reflection, making space for that, and I've already kind of tipped my hat a little bit to this, is the importance to clarify and drill down and really get at the core desire. It's the difference between saying, I want to run a marathon, to saying, I want to be a runner. Notice the language. It's, I want to be someone who runs. I want to be a runner. It's about becoming. It's a vision of becoming who we want to be. I want to be patient. I want to be more generous. It's about the core desire intrinsically in you, something that how you want to be transformed. Because you all know, you've experienced it in the past. I've experienced it over and over again, that when you set a goal that's like, I'm going to do the Whole30, for instance, that's my goal this year. I'm going to do Whole30. Not a bad goal, but it actually isn't connected to a core desire. It's not connected to who you are becoming or what you want to be. So when chocolate is presented to you and it looks good, suddenly you are the person that likes chocolate. It's like it's not rooted in who you are or who you're becoming, because that's, I think, where we get sidetracked in our goals. So don't confuse the who you are and who you're becoming, with the what you do. Don't confuse the goal with the strategy to achieve it. This is the biggest mistake people make in goal setting. Does that make sense? Is this coming together? Any questions? All right.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
So would you recommend for this process of, soul searching and then trying to figure out your core desire, do you recommend focusing in really on one thing versus various things? Or do you recommend tackling a couple goals and breaking it down?
So
by-
and we'll get to this in a minute. I always say start small, right? Find success, start small with something.
Mhm.
And the most powerful question I have found from my own life in this drilling down core desire focusing process is to ask, what's under that? So if I say, okay, my goal is to, I'll go back to run a marathon. Why? What's under that? Well, because I think it would be a really good goal. It'd help me get in shape. Okay, well, what's under that? And just keep drilling down and drilling down and drilling down until you can identify, I actually want to be a runner. Like I want to be that. I want that to be said of me. I want my life to reflect that characteristic. And so, that's one example. But drilling down, what's under it? Why? Because when the going gets tough, when it's hard to maintain that goal, you're going to need to know your why.
Right. Okay.
Okay, moving on. Reverse engineering. So we're going to talk about how we go from what's our core desire to making a strategy to achieve that goal. All right, so this is Becky Lana's strategy types. All right, so here are your 4 types of strategies to reach your goal. The first one is a developmental goal. All right, so a developmental goal has within it a progression. So it's like to harp on this metaphor again, the marathon training is the process to my goal to be a runner, but it has a progression. I'm following a pattern. I'm starting small and increasing my activities as I go along. Typically, this happens with like fitness goals or things like that because it's more geared towards growing the length of time you exercise or the amount. It's like the push-up challenge. I've seen this every year. That you start with 1 push-up a day, then you go to 2, then you go to 3, then it's like a developmental or progressive strategy for achieving your goal. The second is an adjacent goal. So I'm sure somebody calls this something else, but this is what I call it. So an adjacent goal is a goal that adjacent strategy is a strategy to achieve a goal that is something you can control that might not be in the particular area that your goal is set out for, but it will impact or influence that goal. So I have a couple of folks that I've coached that want to be patient with their kids. That's their goal. They want to be a patient mom or dad. That's their goal. They want that to be who they are. Well, one of the strategies you can apply is an adjacent strategy. So then you say, what other area of my life can I control to help me become more patient? Because patience here spills over into patience there. So the example would be their goal or their strategy for their goal was to drive always in the slow lane. Always. Every time they got on the freeway, slow lane. Annoying for sure, but that strategy adjacent to their parenting patience goal influenced their parenting patience goal. Then there's the third type, which is the repetitive strategy. So you just do it every single day in the same way, at the same time. You make it happen in order to meet your goal. So an example of this is somebody I know, their goal was that they wanted to improve their sleep. So they were finding that they weren't sleeping well. And so that was their goal, is they wanted to sleep better. And so we talked about different options for how to reverse engineer, what strategy they would apply to meet that goal. And the strategy that they employed was to read before going to bed instead of being on a screen, being on a telephone, or watching a TV, right? So they employed a strategy to read a book before going to bed. And so that was what they did every night before bed. They turned off their screens and read the book. And that was a repetitive strategy that did, in fact, improve their sleeping patterns. And then the last one, strategy number 4, is a triggering strategy. So it goes like this. Whenever blank happens, I will blank. So it's situation dependent, it's scenario specific, but you start to employ a strategy that whenever this scenario happens, I'm going to respond in this way. So for me, this looked like probably about 7 or 8 years ago. My goal for my year, my goal was to become somebody who celebrates well. I'd noticed and observed people in my life who were really good at celebrating. My family, not so good at celebrating. And I wanted to be a celebrator. That was what I wanted. That was who I wanted to become. And so I employed the strategy of a triggering mechanism. So basically, anytime I heard somebody mention anniversary, birthday, baby, wedding, whatever it was, something worthy of celebration, my trigger was to do something to celebrate them. So that was, it could be send an email, send a text, throw a party, whatever was appropriate. I wasn't putting the pressure on myself to have a specific response, but whatever it was triggered by finding out news from somebody. And that was my first strategy in 7 years ago. That has reaped so much reward in my life, and it's gone way beyond just sending a message, but I wanted to be known as someone who celebrated. So those are the 4 types of strategies for our goals. Okay, what questions do you guys have? Or observations? What's clicking?
So I'm assuming that we pick the one that ends up fitting our goal the best. We're not trying to do all of these to match one goal.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes we're going to get to the adjust. Sometimes we employ one of these strategies and it's not as effective as we had wanted it to be. So the next time around we say, I'm going to employ a different strategy.
Right. I was kind of wondering that if like fitness related, like the developmental versus the repetitive, like just getting consistent versus building. So I could see how maybe you start with one and if it's not working correctly, switch over.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on. All right. So
Wait, sorry, I was on mute. Can you go back for just a sec?
Yep.
Can you give another example of an adjacent practice?
Yes. So here, we'll use you as an example, Kelsey. What's one thing you're thinking about as terms of a goal?
So my goals are pretty ethereal. They're more like, I want to be a person who.
Great.
And now actually it helps me think about it. Okay, so I want to be, I've been thinking about kind of 3 words I think I shared with you, that I want to be somebody who savors, wonders, and shares, both like in my personal and in my professional life. And so when I think of savor, I actually mean like big time, like savoring the world, but maybe the adjacent practice for me is to slow down and savor my breakfast, or like to because that will help me to savor more things in my day. So I'm getting it a little bit now.
Yeah, that's a great example. Sometimes with these big ethereal goals, an adjacent goal is the only option we have, because how do you yeah, it becomes a good option for that because you can narrow it down to one specific area of your life to apply that principle to. And we'll get to this in just a minute too, but like, it's a really good example. Does anyone else have another example of a goal? And we could talk about an adjacent goal you might think about.
Mine is maybe to try to meditate because everyone talks about meditation and how great it is.
Okay, so your goal is to meditate. Yes. So this is a little tougher for the adjacent because meditation is meditation, but let's see.
But wouldn't that be a strategy? Wouldn't meditation be a strategy rather than a goal? So maybe the goal is to be somebody who is mindful.
There you go. Drilling down. Perfect. So mindfulness or rooted, well, actually, why? Why meditation? Is it peace of mind? Is it calm? Is it quiet? What's the thing that is the why behind meditation stuff?
Gosh, it's a good question. Everyone talks about it and they're like, it's changed my life. So I guess maybe calm and like, because my head is always buzzing. So maybe it is just simmer down and maybe get clarity or answers from above. I don't know, from somewhere.
So this will be really important for you, Steph, in order to make this goal and to actually live into the goal. You do need to know the why. You need to understand why you would do that, because otherwise it's just a great idea that works for other people. It's not something that you're going to be motivated to do when life gets busy and you're stressed out and, you know, you're pulled in different directions.
Okay.
Really know the why.
Okay. I'll work on that homework.
Does anybody else have an example of a goal they want to share they're thinking through?
I think the one goal I was kind of thinking about was, especially since we were kind of forced to empty our calendars a little bit and slow down. I have a tendency of filling space, whether that's the empty walls in my house to the empty places in our calendar. And I was thinking about how it's been nice to kind of be forced to not be so busy and hang out at home more. And so I have a goal like coming into this new year to try to save some of that and can make that have a goal to make that be a part of a regular routine where I don't constantly fill space and allow for just some emptiness, which I know he would very much love because he hates it when I fill up every minute.
So Courtney, same with you. The drill down. What is the thing, who you want to become or how you want your family to live, or you got to drill down to the core issue here in order to know how to reverse engineer.
I would say part of it is just to feel less stressed, feel, you know, I feel the need to create experiences and, you know, fun things for the family to do, whether that's, and I'm also very much a people person, so I love gathering people together. So half the time it's inserting either a family activity, and that family activity could just be going for a walk or like, oh, let's go to the snow, but sometimes it takes all day. And so there's times where being at home all day doing nothing, I have to battle that feeling that like we missed out on something or we failed to have an experience. Like I have a weird mindset thing that I have to battle with, like doing nothing is okay. And as a constant productive doer, that's a battle for me.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have just highlighted about 3 or 4 things going on there. So I would encourage you to continue this self-reflection and drilling down and drilling down. Ask the why. Why do you feel that you have to create experiences for your family? Why do you get anxious when the calendar isn't full? What's underneath that? What's below that? What's motivating that? So that you can really uncover whether it's a true self or false self issue, which is a whole other topic we can get into later. Which one is influencing your will?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, people set goals all the time and we don't achieve them because we don't do the work of self-reflection. We don't do the work of drilling down to that core motivation, core desire, the core pull that we have to be the person that we want to be. Because ultimately, friends, what we tell ourselves about who we are influences our actions more than we could ever imagine. Many, many, many years ago, some of you I've known that long, many, many years ago, I was with Erica actually leading backpacking and mountaineering trips in Canada. And I remember coming back after having knee surgery and pain and all this stuff. And I just came out of that experience and I said, I want my body to be free. I want to have full ability in my body and get back to where I was physically. And so I started running. And I remember I had to change the self-talk because I always thought I'm the person recovering from knee surgery. Like that's what I say. I can't run because I'm recovering from knee surgery. And I remember the day that I decided that I wanted to become a runner. That's my identity now, you guys. I get up and run at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. If I'm on vacation, if I'm at a hotel, Kelsey can attest, I just did it last week. Like I do that because I'm a runner. I don't even have to pep talk myself anymore. I just do it because that's what runners do. And so who you believe about who you are, what you believe about who you are, will determine your actions more than most any other strategy or activity. All right. So this is really important where we get to that core desire. Really get down, drill down to what is the thing that you want to become? Who is it that you want to be? Because that will determine whether you're able to do the goals that you set for you. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox and we'll go on to some tips and tricks. All right, so here's just a few different things that I have found helpful, and they will speak into the other things that we've talked about too. Okay, so habit stacking. This is a tool that I want to encourage all of you to employ in your goal setting, all right, and in your goal achieving. So this year, one of the best books that I read was a book called Atomic Habits. Anyone read that book? I loved it. I mean, it just, partly I was like, why didn't I write this book? But I loved it so much. And one of the key things that he talks about in the book is this concept of habit stacking. So he says that to create a new habit or a new rhythm for your life, or as my language, a strategy to achieve your goal from nothing is really, really hard, right? There's so many things. You guys listed those in the email responses I got from you that, time, obligations, finances, there's so many things that come in the way and distract us from doing those new habits. But if we can attach a new habit to an old habit, we're going to be more successful in doing the new habit on our way to achieving our goals. So an example of this, the example I gave you about the person who wanted to sleep better, that was their goal. They read every night before they went to bed, but stacking, they did a habit stacking. So they were already somebody who made their bed every day. Maybe some of you are like that. That was already a habit they had in their life. So they made their bed every day. And when they made their bed every day, the thing that they would do at the end of making their bed is take their book and put it on their pillow. So when they crawled into bed, They have the book in their hand. And it helped them to remember to do the habit that they wanted to introduce towards their goal. You have so many habits, friends. You brush your teeth every day. You sometimes shower every day or in some form of regularity, not this year perhaps, but in other years. You check your voicemail or your emails. There's habits that you already have, good and bad. So think about when you're setting these goals and you need a strategy, attaching or stacking the new rhythm or new strategy to an old habit. All right. The second is reward yourself. This is a strategy, especially in health and fitness, I find to be very important, because often when you make goals around fitness and health, they are goals that strategies that will make you deprive yourself of the thing that was dragging you down, like chocolate ice cream every night, for instance, or the comfort of sleeping in, or you're making a difficult choice, a discipline, in order to achieve your goal. So find a reward that propels you towards your goal. So it could be, I know this works for a lot of women. They get up every day for a week and go running or whatever, exercise every day for a week, then they let themselves buy a pair of new leggings or something like that, like attaching it to a reward, but just don't sabotage yourself by making the reward something against your goals. All right, this one is important. The third one is to involve community. In Christian community, the best possible way we talk about this is accountability. But I want to take it beyond just having someone ask you if you did it, and to involve somebody with you in the process. There may be a way, some of our goals, this is not true, but some of our goals, our strategies can very much be you do it with someone else. So think about ways that you can involve your community, your spouse, your kids, your neighbors, how you can even meet people and build community if you need to around a new goal. All right, this next one, make it obvious, attractive, and easy. This may seem obvious, but make it obvious. Do the thing, the new habit, the new rhythm, the new pattern in your life to achieve your goal. Make it so it's easy for you to do. That might mean something like, for me, I always set out my running clothes the night before. So it's easy. I don't even have to think about what I'm going to wear. It's just right there, put it on. And it's obvious I'd have to trip over my shoes in order to not run. So it's there. And I like to listen to music. So I make it attractive because I'm listening to something I want to listen to. Or maybe it's a podcast you like to listen to, or whatever. Make your goals obvious, make them easy, make them attractive. Especially in eating goals, if there's something around health, make it easy on yourself by getting rid of all the things in your house that you shouldn't or don't want to eat, right? Like that makes it easy. And then find something you really like to make it attractive, and make it obvious by putting the things that maybe you want to eat right in front of your face. Like they say, if your goal is to eat more fruits and vegetables, like to be healthy, so your strategy is if your goal is to be healthy, your strategy is to eat more fruits and vegetables, then put the fruit that's easy to eat, like apples and bananas, right there in front of you. You don't even have to peel an orange. It's right, easy, and it tastes good, and it's on the counter ready for you to eat. It's visible, it's obvious, it's attractive and easy. All right, next is the managing of self-talk. And we've talked about this quite a bit already, but this is huge. In the book, Atomic Habits, the author talks about how hard it was for people to quit smoking who had a self-talk that said they were trying to quit smoking. It's like, oh, do you want a cigarette? No, I'm trying to quit. Do you want to smoke? No, I'm trying to quit. The people who had the self-talk and then that came out in their actual words, that they were trying to quit never actually successfully quit. But if they change their self-talk, change their mindset that they don't smoke. I don't smoke. As of right now, I don't smoke. They were more successful in maintaining that pattern. I'm a runner. I'm a patient parent. I'm a generous person. That self-talk, don't beat yourself up over it. Change the self-talk, manage that self-talk. It will help you to achieve that goal. And then we've already said this a bunch, so I won't belabor this point, but start small for big impact. It doesn't have to be, I want to be healthy. So my goal is to never eat carbs, to never eat anything bad for me. I'm only going to, like, don't make it a complete altering of your life, because those are the ones that sabotage yourself. But do small changes to make a big impact. All right. All right. So the fourth step is to try it and evaluate. And I always tell people, take 6 months. Take a 6-month. I know we're setting year goals for New Year's, but just at least put on your calendar on July 1st to evaluate the goal. How's it going? Does it need to be changed? Does it need to be kept? Is it too easy? Is it too hard? Is it not effective at all? Did you totally abandon it? And if so, why? And if it isn't connected to your core desire, which I'm going to say over and over and over again, you will know it, because you will likely have already quit. If it's not connected to the thing that you deeply desire, your want, your why, then likely you won't be successful in that goal. And then you never accomplish the goals that you don't try. It's like such a cliche statement, but so true. You actually have to try it. You have to put these things into practice. But I will say, there's no shame. Give yourself grace. There's no blaming. Just be honest. Don't blame the kids or your work schedule or your whatever. Just be honest. Just be real. And those shoulds, stop shoulding on ourselves, right? And move to want. You shouldn't be healthy. You want to be healthy. So we're thinking through that. All right. All right. So that's that presentation part of our program here. So, all right. I'm going to put us on gallery view here so we can have a little conversation. All right. What questions are coming up? What are you learning? What are you seeing? Let's process this together.
Becky, what was your last line? The shame to grace, blame to honesty, and
Should to want.
should to want.
Because sometimes we need to want, right? Like ultimately deep down, I don't want to not eat these carbs, but I want to, in my case, I want to not have tingly body all the time, right? Like I want the carbs right now, but I want to not feel bad in my body, right? It's the greater want. It's the deeper want. It's not the shoulds, it's the wants. I'm certain that this is not all new, but perhaps it has something that you're gleaning from it that's different.
I have another. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I really like the, make it obvious, attractive, and easy. And kind of as I think back at the habits that I have, it's because they're, obvious and it's just kind of what happens. But it's tricky, like thinking about new goals when life is very full.
Yep.
And so like, how do you transition into new avenues or streamline other things? So yeah, but that's really helpful.
Kels, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, do you have practical tips for hanging your hat on the deeper want as opposed to giving into the present desire?
Can you ask that in a different way?
Yeah, like I want to have a healthy body, but right now I want another piece of cake. So do you have practical tips for living, for tying your heart more to the more important, deeper wants than to giving in to the present littler wants?
Well, I think what you're identifying is the challenge of goal setting, because not every goal is appropriate for every time. And the reality is we have competing wants. That is true. We have to acknowledge that in our lives. So that either you have a choice, either you're going to choose mentally, you're going to say, the want I want more is the healthy body. I know that I'm going to want this other thing too. You're going to make a choice, and then you're going to try to use those other strategies. So you find a community, you make it easy and obvious. You do those other things in order, you habit stack, you do these things to help you to overcome the competing want. But honestly, with really good self-reflection, you can start to see the deepest, what's down the deepest, right? Like, what's the thing that's really there, and why are those things competing? Like, what's the other thing? Because chocolate cake it's desirable, but what's beyond, like, what's deeper than that? It's this momentary satisfaction versus, right? So it's actually uncovering the why behind that want through self-reflection that I think will help. And then you know what strategies you can apply to attack the deep want, not just the cake, but what's the deeper want there too. So it's not easy. It's not easy.
Even in your answer, you asked a question that I will probably post somewhere. You just said, what is the want that I want more? And I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're frozen. Oh, no, you're not frozen.
I just was pondering. I was in self-reflection. Any other thoughts, comments? Brooke, Debbie, either of you have anything? No pressure. Just want to make sure you have a voice. Oh yeah. What do you got, Courtney?
Well, I was just thinking about kind of going back to what Kelsey was saying, and maybe just, this probably is more of a strategy, but of just setting up your environment when you're helping towards your goal. I heard someone say one time, because I'm a big sweet tooth and I'm trying to minimize that. So they said someone said, like, it's easier to say no once at the store than to say no, like, however many are in the jar type of thing. And so I remember thinking about that, and just the idea of, like, if you said make it obvious and easy, and so your environment isn't part of that. So if you've got goals for certain things, not only bringing things in there that encourage you, but taking away
the distractions. Yeah.
Distractions, temptations, stuff like that. And then
That's
I was
hard
curious,
with kids.
oh, sorry, what?
That's hard with kids.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Have you heard of the SMART acronym for goal setting, Becky?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, the SMART, it definitely fits within this thing, and that is true. I didn't mention that, and I should add that to this presentation, but the strategies that you employ have to be measurable, right? Like, you have to know if you're gonna do those things, right? So can you actually measure the fact that you're, you can, like, run a marathon? That's, yes, check the box. But it helps if we know. And actually, my philosophy in goal setting is a little different than the SMART philosophy, because they actually set the goals with the thing that you do as the goal. So I have found, for me personally, that I need to get to the core desire and who I want to become as my goal, the bigger umbrella goal, and then I set strategies underneath that goal. So that's a different philosophy of goal setting. That's just my personal conviction. So.
I really like that part. Like, having heard about SMART goal setting too, and what, like, came to my mind is that for years I was a homeschool mom. And so I set goals for my children every year, for their school every year. And something that you said just resonated with that. Like you have to know the why, because when it gets really hard, if you don't know why you're doing it, you're just going to give up. But I don't think I ever took that application and put it to my own personal life before. Like just when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, like I've done that with my kids, but not necessarily for other goals that I have for myself.
Yeah.
So thanks.
I wanted to ask your advice, Becky. I think one of the things I really want to focus on is being more active every day and just getting in the habit of activity. But one of the things I'm struggling with is I'm thinking, like, I love the idea of the habit stacking. And if I can get into a habit of, I drink my coffee every morning. So if I get in some activity right first thing in the morning after that, potentially, maybe I can make it a little more built into my routine instead of figuring out how I have to fit it in during the day. But because that's more of a broader goal than like run a marathon in the process to become a runner, I'm wondering, do you think it's better to hone in on one activity specifically, like I'm going to walk every morning consistently, or do you think it's okay to be, I'm going to do some kind of activity every morning and plan it out, like 2 days I'm going to cycle and 2 days I'm going to walk? Because I like the idea of like, you don't have to think about it, you just dive in, it's your routine. But if it's not the same thing every day, I'm wondering how you do that.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I have two things to say, and then we'll talk about your goal. First is, if you know me at all, I love coffee.
Yeah.
I don't let myself have coffee until I exercise. It's my reward. It's actually my reward. Not the tips and tricks. Reward yourself. My reward is the coffee after my run. That's just been my life pattern. Second thing I wonder is your why. What's your why, Caitlin?
I think, and I need to keep drilling down on this, but I think I've had my sights on this for a while. And I think the why behind it is doing activity every day will make me feel healthier and happier. And I think that will just flow into other areas of my life. I think it's a really core basic that if I don't have that built in strategically, that then, it shows in other areas. Like I'm less patient, I'm less emotionally stable, I'm less focused, I'm less creative. So I think if I get that as a base, is like, this is my self-care level set, makes me feel good every day, I think that will radiate out into other areas of my life and just make me feel better overall.
I love what you're saying.
Okay.
Keep drilling down. Like keep going deeper. And in fact, if you can say it in one succinct statement.
Okay.
My desire is I want to be fill in the blank, like drill it down. Because when the alarm goes off at 6 and you think, I have to go for a walk today. You're relearning the pattern of I want to be healthy, or I want to be happy, whatever it is. You got to connect it to your why, right?
Okay.
And one of the things I find is that all of us could have our goal to be happy in 2021. That could be our goal. And we could all employ different, unique strategies about how to be happy. Mm-hmm. But as long as you know your why, that's the point, right? I'm not saying there's a formula that like, you have to say this particular thing and then you have this, like, no, you just need to know your why, and that'll help motivate you towards your completing your strategies. And then in your strategy, Caitlin, you use some of those techniques I just talked about. So maybe it's setting a schedule that you say, my strategy is to exercise for 30 minutes every day. That's measurable, achievable, doable. Mm-hmm. And then utilize those other strategies. Find, not right now, but find a cycling group or text me and I'll go with you. Like have accountability and structure in place so that you're setting yourself up for success, and that's more fun. It's attractive, right? So you're employing some of those strategies about tips and tricks.
right? I can see where the challenge really comes in to really find the why and not do it because you should or you think it's a good idea. And I can see how that's really important, but that's harder to do than just trying to schedule exercise.
Yep. That's why I'm saying that's the hardest part about goal setting and what tanks every goal,
Okay.
because we don't know our why. Anyone else want to be our guinea pig and talk about their goal they're thinking about?
Sure.
Okay, go
Okay,
Kristen.
sorry. I had to go pick up the shelf and like I just got out of it. Okay, so one of my goals this year is to be an authentic writer who influences other people. And so one of the strategies I have, well, I don't know if this is one strategy or three. So I want to,
Classic Kristen. Good. I love it.
Yes. Okay. So by the way, I felt the freedom of not change. When we started, I was like, I like the idea of being able to set a goal because then I can scrap it because I like to control what I'm doing. But I like it better that I maybe just change the strategy and keep the goal. So I want to be an authentic and influential writer. So I set a strategy up, not a goal, set a strategy up to post 3 blog posts per month, send out 1 newsletter per month, and grow my platform, email list, whatever you want to call it, to 1,000 people. So like, those are my like little, things associated with that. That's it.
Okay. That's it. End of statement. So do you know in your mind how you're going to do that?
So I've had some coaching with you and I have discovered some really great rhythms that work in my life. They work mostly like 80% of the time, if I had to give it a percentage, just because of the nature of like things changing frequently just in the world. But so like I connect with my people and help them with their stuff in the morning. And I do my own, like, I have a rhythm of what do we call it? Like intake and then creative output. So my afternoons are my creative time and I write. And so that's like, I feel like I have a good enough rhythm to make, well, at least good enough for now, to like keep that going. I like reflected back on like, how many posts did I do last year? What does that break down to? Like, how difficult was that? Did I put them in? Anyway, I just kind of reflected back a little bit on that kind of stuff. But I think that's kind of, I feel like I'm mostly set up for that. There's some things that are, I feel like there's some gaps in like, okay, I want to get there, but I'm here. And like, there's some technical gaps and I'm filling them by like, I signed up for a class and I'm partway through the class and, and like, I'm doing the steps as they show up. So I feel pretty confident that like, it's mostly manageable. Is that the question you asked me?
Yeah. So you actually give a really good example of how sometimes we set a goal and we employ a strategy and that strategy becomes habit. We haven't fully reached our goal yet. So now we don't just scrap that old strategy. This is habit. So then we take another opportunity to form another strategy to keep working towards that goal. So whereas you've got the strategy, you figured out a system that works for you, rhythms in your day, that took some work, but you figured that out, that you now have a rhythm. It's a pattern. It's already established habit of how you write and how you spend your time during the day and the week. That's great. But have you reached your goal? Not yet. Yeah. So let's take another stab at something else you could do that works towards that goal that may be a different angle.
Yep. So like then to me, so the blog posting was what I was working on, the consistency in my writing. And so then maybe this is different. So like adding the newsletter in because I want to consistently reach them with like words that may inspire them or point them to Jesus because he's the source of all inspiration, like those types of things. So like other than just independent blog posts, that like monthly, like creating a community, that part of it, is that like another angle? Like, so like is writing a monthly newsletter like another angle at being an influential,
you tell me,
writer?
That's your goal. So
it feels like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it feels like it, again, come up with a plan, employ a strategy, and try it out, see if it's working. But no, you don't, now that you have an already established habit of your blog posting, you can employ another strategy towards that same goal. It's like, okay, I've got this angle, let's try this angle. And maybe you want to think about the newsletter, maybe something else entirely. I don't know what that looks like, but making sure that you know when you've done the strategy, you've worked that strategy, whether it's I tried that, check the box, or it's become a habit, check the box, then it allows you the freedom to move on to the next thing.
Okay.
Good?
Yeah,
Satisfied?
that's great.
All right, Stefan, what you got, girl? I want to know what you're thinking over there. Steph, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, I want to know what you're thinking.
I didn't hear the stuff part. I'm like thinking about my goals. Like I was a late add to this because I rarely check Instagram. So I saw it today and I was like, oh yeah, cool. And luckily I just whipped out this book. So I work at Nike and they have all these workshops and they're super great at doing like discover yourself workshops or expand your experiences. They have tons of things. I've taken lots of tests on like my brain, like what my brain, like how it functions, and the what's the one? Oh, Strengths Finder. So like, I'm on in years and I should have figured out like what I'm good at. So I'm like literally trying to find the goal, and still like career, like goal, get a new job. But then it's like, it's going to be the homework of, well, why? It's like, so I can feel satisfied and productive and happy and doing something I like. I feel like that's what I've always missed, but I don't know like how to find that. And I have my bedside table is literally right here. I live in a studio. It's awesome, but it's like finding your element. Like I have self-help books out the waz, but I guess it's doing the work, and I never really look inward. I don't know what I'm scared of, but I just keep going on with no like direction, I guess.
Well, and Steph, thanks for your vulnerability, because you give such a good example for all of us, because no matter what strategy we employ, or as most of the world talks about, what goal we set, if we don't get to the why, we might achieve that strategy or goal, but it won't satisfy us because we haven't gotten to the why.
Mm-hmm.
Or we just won't do it because it's not connected to our core desire. So, I mean, kudos to you, Steph. You've always been this way. You've always been like looking for answers, but whatever it is, you got to go in, you got to get in there and figure out your why.
Yep. This is true. So that'll be a goal. Like find your why, find it. Like time is always ticking. So thank you for leading this and being
All right.
on.
Does anyone else have one? We'll do one more. Somebody want to throw their goal option out there they're thinking through, and we can talk about it.
I'm gonna go one more time because this has been a big deal for me, because I hate goals, and I think that they are people who are enslaved by the productivity machine. It made me totally reevaluate like the changing the direction of my thinking to being the person that I am inside is my goal. Now, applying that reality to my business and my fitness and my relationships, that's where the fun comes. And that's freeing and not binding, because it's actually living further into who I really am in those little areas. And so like I just, even for me, like getting out and exercising more. If I say I need to exercise because I need to be healthy, that will never motivate me. But if I just wrote down, like, if I'm somebody who wants to savor each day, I wrote down I could savor the rain, and I can savor the cold, and I can savor my neighbor's yard, and I can savor the river, and I can, like, if that's my goal, it's so different for me. And that feels like me, not like I'm doing what somebody tells me I should do, which I don't like to do. So that's super fun. Like, I just wrote down my 3 words, and I'm gonna put them on my bedside table. So when I wake up in the morning, I know that that's where I'm headed.
I love that. And that's a really good point too, that sometimes we don't know it until we have the self-reflection that some of the goals that we have, we think are totally disparate, but they're actually something that is holistically connected.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're talking about, Kelsey, with this, body fitness thing, we think that's a totally different thing than over this, but actually, if we get to the core desire, we can connect it to who we are and who we're becoming and who we want to be. And then we can have fun with the strategies we employ, which we make it enjoyable. We reward ourselves. We put those things in place. We stack it against another habit so that it becomes easier to remember. Those are the kinds of things, like, we don't want to be beating ourselves up over our goals. And I find that most people who are frustrated in goal setting are employing a strategy that someone else gave them, that they are doing out of guilt or shame. And friends, that is the wrong motivation. It's the wrong motivation. It's not what it's about. It's about being who we really are and living into our best selves. All right. Well, this has been fun, huh? Yay. So this is the start. I'm going to give you guys some homework. So I want you to go back to those steps. And a lot of us, maybe we thought coming into this, we were like on step number, employ a strategy, but now we're actually realizing that we're in step self-reflection, right? Go back, or maybe just drilling it down to the core desire. So I want to encourage you to do that. I know it's January 1st. There is no reason that you have to have this figured out today. But start the journey. So make some time, pull out your calendars right now, put in time for reflection, for this drilling down, finding that core desire, and then employ some of these strategies, the different techniques that I've given you, these tips and these tricks. And it doesn't have to be burdensome or laborious. It can actually be freeing and fun. We can make it that way. And you and I know that if it's freeing and fun, we're more likely to accomplish those goals. All right. So some of you, almost all of you know that I am a life coach. So if you would like some coaching, let me know, because I would love to walk with you on the journey. Some of you on here already have gotten to do that with. So I'm grateful for that and for the ways that I've seen you live into who you are and flourish in yourselves. So, and yeah, I'm going to record this. So if there's somebody in your life that you're like, oh my gosh, you have to watch this thing, I'll send it to you. I'll send you a link and you can send it to them. Merry Christmas. But yeah, this is something I really love doing, and I'm super grateful for the chance to get to be on this call with you. And, if this is a good time for you to be coached, I really think everyone needs a coach. So let me help you. And then lastly, I am going to send you some more follow-up information. I'll send you the information about the book, the Habits, if you haven't read that one, and a couple other options and places to go if you're interested in learning more. Like I said, this is not taken from one book. This is just my life of coaching and goal setting. So yeah. Any other questions, last questions or thoughts that I can answer for you? All right. Well, I'm hoping with great eagerness and anticipation for this to be a transformative year in all of our lives. And I'm excited to see how even just our time together will impact the ways we live in this coming year. So thanks for journeying with me.
Beck.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank you.